the world's #1 podcasting platform for African stories. Hey everyone, thank you for making the time. Welcome to Africa Podcast Day. This panel is on podcasters shaping the narrative in African podcasting. My name is Gathoni. I'm the community manager at Afripods. Afripods is a Pan-African hosting and distribution platform, and we're building the largest library of African audio stories. With me today, I have amazing trendsetters in the podcasting space in Africa. I'm going to start with Chulu Chansa, then we have Ben and Wanjiru, and we have Rodney. I never say your second name because I don't want to butcher it. I'll let you do that for us. But I will start my panel as I always do. I like to ask people to introduce yourself as you would someone who's never met you before, because I feel like what I think is important may not be what you think is important. So Chulu, I'm going to start with you. How would you introduce yourself to anyone who doesn't know who you are?
Okay. Let's see. So my name is Chulu. I am from Zambia, based in Zambia. And I have a podcast network, which is called Africana Woman. We have 4 podcasts under our network, which is super fun. And we tell stories about African women. We center them in everything that we do. So our narratives, the impact that we want to make are for African women. So that's what we do.
Go women, love to see it. I'm going to split the couple just for this introduction. Wanjiru, I'll come to you next. How would you introduce yourself to someone who doesn't know about you?
So hi everyone, my name is Wanjiru Njiru Karaoke. This is the karaoke. He's my husband. We run a podcast network together called the Joyride Podcast, based in Nairobi, Kenya. Under it, again, just like Chulu said, we have 4 shows under it. Just like Chulu, we have a female show called The Nook. We have a male-centered show called The Den. And then we have the show that started it all, the Joyride Podcast. And then we introduced a new segment, a new show last year called the Joyride Stories. And so what the Joyride is just about, it's about relationships, it's about life. It's about just creating this authentic space where people can share on relationships and everything in between. Personally, I'm a media entrepreneur. That's what I'm going with this new year.
Let's go media. Okay. I'll do Rodney and then Ben, just for the sake of this interaction. Rodney, I'm coming to you. How would you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Rodney Omeokachie. I am a photographer turned brand strategist turned podcaster. I host a podcast called The Young God, which is a curation of stories, conversations, ideas about how to elevate your life experience and be the best version of yourself. I've been doing it for quite some time, and it's my baby, it's my pride and joy. So I'm glad to talk about my experience and to share what's up.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us. Ben, we just found out your last name, so introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Ben Karaoke, but my artist name is Ben Cyco. I'm a musician. I'm also part of the Joyride podcast, which I run with my wife here. We run a podcast called the Joyride Podcast, and we want to call it Joyride Networks because we have a lot of things that we do under it. We have events, we have a podcast studio that we run, and we have the shows that my wife has talked about. I'm super excited to be part of this panel of great people from Africa.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gathoni.
For sure. Thank you guys for making the time. Now, I'm going to start with a question on your inspiration behind your podcasts. You've talked about women, you've talked about relationships, you've talked about bettering yourself. What is it that made you decide it's going to be a podcast specifically? Why was that the medium of choice? Rodney, I'll start with you.
First of all, I would say that it was the ease of entry. I found that you could just do it in your underwear. So I was like, that is the lowest maintenance I need to really express myself. I don't need the lights, I don't need the camera, I don't need all the extra stuff. I could just do it, and you think I'm this serious human being behind the camera, behind the voice, not knowing that I'm out here just lazing. But at the same time, I found that it also fit my skill set. Because when I was in college, I used to make music. I was a music producer, singer, songwriter, all different things. I had fun with that. And so 10 years later, when I was looking into the next step in my career, I found that I had these transferable skills that fit very well with podcasting and could help me create a show that was uniquely mine, uniquely suited to the audience I wanted to build and the environment I was in. And then finally, I found I had a point of view that was very, very that was worth documenting, worth sharing. That helped people like feel heard, seen, and understood. And so all those different things just made it a no-brainer to get into podcasts and take it very seriously.
Amazing. Then Wanjiru, I will come to you next. What was your inspiration? I know you started as Wanjiru, I knew you as an influencer first. That's where we were introduced to you, at least in Kenya. So why, like, what made you go into podcasting?
I think just to sum it all up, as you'd mentioned, I'd been in the content space for a while, since 2015. And we'd been doing content together on and off on my channel at that time. So, and we toyed around with the idea of doing, like, hosting a platform where we could just share all our shenanigans together. And so when we got married, it felt like the opportune time to be able to create this space. And that's how we ended up with the Joyride podcast. I don't know if it was different for you, Ben.
So for me, I was in the music space for a long time. I've always been in the music space. I'm a musician in Kenya. Always felt like I had so many opinions to share that sometimes I wasn't allowed to, based on the short amount of time that you get on TV to talk about when you're doing the media tour. But I felt like maybe I needed my own space. So something that I also did is that I tried to be a TV host. Even though that came after the podcast has started, but I could still feel like, I don't know why Leo is mad.
Sorry, guys, there's a dog situation.
The only reason,
It's fine, we got you.
the only reason,
We get it.
the only reason it came to the car is because the chihuahua was too
Too
loud.
loud. Yeah, sorry, guys.
So I also felt like TV and mainstream media was not giving me the platform and the amount of time that I needed to express myself. So when this thing known as podcasting came up, and you really didn't need so much to just start it, I was like, this is the best thing. And after that, it's downhill. I actually started with another podcast called the Cyco podcast. From my name, I didn't want to think much. So when I started that podcast, I felt like a lot of people were enjoying listening to what I'm saying. And later on when we got married, we thought that maybe it's time for us to combine forces and start a podcast called the Joyride Podcast, and it has just been an amazing journey.
Yeah.
Well, I always say I stumbled on podcasting. I was doing a program, I guess a coaching program, and one of the things that they had us do was go live on social media. Wasn't really that into, being out there in the public and whatnot. So I thought, you know what, let me do it with somebody. So I invited friends to come onto my Instagram and would have Instagram lives and, have these amazing conversations. But then I felt limited. I felt like, these are great conversations, but they're just stuck on my my Instagram. So then I started trying to think about what can I do to, get these conversations out to more people. And that's when I decided to try podcasting. And I think at the time I had possibly about 8 or 10 episodes or interviews that I had done and repurposed onto podcasting. And I found that I loved the medium. And now here we are, I think, maybe, I don't know, about 200 episodes later. So it's fun. Yeah.
That's amazing. Before I go into the questions and why I think you're trendsetters in this space, I feel like your podcasts each have a very unique name. So I want to know the inspiration behind that. Chulu, why Africana woman?
It's actually a name I adopted from a blog, which I started with some friends. So again, another program. I met some friends there and we thought, okay, what can we do to commemorate what we've learned here? So we were doing the Yali program. And yeah, so we decided to start a blog. 3 women in different countries. I'm in Zambia. One of the ladies is Zimbabwean, but lives in Kenya, and another lady in Mozambique. And then the blog kind of just naturally died. Life started lifing and happening. So when I started doing the program, I decided to start writing again. And I asked the ladies, is it okay if I take up the name and, the whole brand, because the skeleton was there, the website, everything was already set up, and they gave me their blessing. So we actually started as a blog. And then I added the podcast, and then the community has grown around it. So I guess Africana Women is really just about, I guess, embracing who we are as an African woman and what that means to us individually in terms of, it doesn't really matter whether you're in a rural or urban setting, you are who you are because of your environment and your experiences and your culture. So, yeah.
Amazing. Rodney, the young god. Why the young god, and how much hell have you gotten from people for calling yourself a god?
Yeah, so that the story is layered, but I'll shorten it to three things. First of all, I had a podcast called The Creative Habits First. That was my first podcast in 2018. Another fantastic title. I'm really good with titles, by the way. But anyway, I had that, and then when I began to grow an audience, I realized that I had more range in what I wanted to talk about, and that in order for me to break through the market or that mud that audiences were used to listen to YouTube and watching YouTube and visual content, I had to like find something that really entered into their consciousness, made them curious. So at that time, I referred to myself as a god. I still do. I am a god, and what that really means is just an individual that's a creative force and capable of social change and being a force for good in a world that is difficult to be good. And at that time, my favorite musicians, Lil Wayne and The Weeknd, they had lyrics in their songs that referenced being young gods. Most recently, The Weeknd song "Often," you may be familiar with that. In one of the verses, he says, "In my city, I'm a young god." And so being fans of those guys and just liking how that sounds, and it just fit. And so I went with it. And so it really helped the marketing. The title really pulled people in, and it stuck since.
It really does pull people in. Whether they're happy about it or not is a whole different story, but good job on that. Joyride. Why Joyride? What was the inspiration behind it?
You wanna go?
Actually, that name. My wife is the one who came up with it. She's very good with names. So maybe she can talk about it. Maybe I can talk about why I agreed to it. It's because we had just gotten married. We went to same campus. We were content creators before that, so a lot of people would know us as a couple, but just like we were dating. So when we got married, all of us were very green into this whole marriage journey and starting a family and all. And so for us, we just looked at it as, we're just letting people in our journey and see how this is gonna pan out. But I don't know, where did you get the name Joy? Did you see it like at night?
Guys, there's nothing deep about it. I'm sorry to disappoint. It just came to me. Names come to me. They just come to me. So if you're looking for a cool name, just let me know. They come to me. They come to me. But to be quite frank, there was really nothing deep about it. As I think Ben has captured it very well. We just wanted to let guys in on our ride, and Joyride fits it perfectly.
Amazing. I'm going to text you when I need some names for companies and everything.
I'm the manager, so you just send the depot
Oh, I
first.
have to go through you. I'll create a group. Then
I
it makes
take
it
care of my
easier.
artists.
That's fine. Is it okay if I create a group?
Don't be
Okay, so
threatened.
I'll come straight. I'll come to you direct. But I'll start with you, Rodney. There's an amazing concept you did, I think, for the first time last year, where you had a live event, but you made it a silent podcast listening event. So people came for the event, but everyone had to have headphones on. It was still a podcast, but together in a room. What was the inspiration behind that?
So there's a good reason, and there's the real reason for doing it. Yeah, the good reason is that I just have this angst that people don't know how to listen, and so I could have done it anyway, any number of ways, but to really get people to listen, I wanted it to really be in their ears. So I did the work of finding a supplier that could provide Bluetooth headsets for minimum 150 people. I really wanted people to listen. I didn't want any distractions, and I wanted them to embrace because especially when you're talking about issues that are very, very, complex. It's not a fine line to thread. So you really want them to share what you have to say before they rebut or have some thoughts. And Nigerians, they love to rebut, especially without putting too much thought into it, dare I say. But so doing that was the good reason. It was I wanted to make it popular. I wanted to make it easy. I wanted to make the idea of listening to podcasts unintimidating. The real reason is that I thought it'd be cool. I thought it would be fun. I thought it was something that never been done in Africa, in the world. I checked, yeah, before I did it. Just the idea of people sitting together in a space, listening to a podcast. And the thing is, I created a playlist. So it wasn't just one episode. It was clips from several different episodes. And so we would listen and we would discuss, listen and we discuss. So that idea is very unique to me. And so and my style of podcasting really suited because the way I arrange things, the way I produce things. So all of that made it a no-brainer. It was just a matter of finding the right partners, and the right space and the right time. And then we did it.
Amazing at creating a playlist. So you were in control then of what was being listened to, and then it's like a podcast. I don't say book club, a podcast club where you listen and then you discuss. Is that how you did it?
So yeah, because the interaction is very big for me. I love to cause I bring up stuff that people ordinarily would have things to say about, so it would be a disservice to the audience if I just had them listen and then we went home. And so what I did was I picked parts that were really, really noteworthy, triggering, dare I say, things you never heard before, things that they've never heard that someone say in real life that only I could see on my platform. And then as we listened, I would pause and I would just like all breathe and hear what people are thinking. And it was really, really cool. And so for the second one we did, this time it was the sponsor had a little bit of creative control, which was fine. They gave me a theme this time. They said, Ronnie, you wanted to create things from scratch now, not just pre-recorded episodes. Create something from scratch around the theme. And they paid good money for that, and so it made it really cool to do that. Yeah. So that's another thing, like the income stream of it all now. It's like people, you can either charge tickets for that, or you could build a whole new thing for a partner that wants to have their own agenda or something like that. But they still wanted it within the Young God platform. They wanted me to do it my way, to just have the thing, but just do it your way and have the audience engage. And so, yeah, that was what that was about.
I'm curious about the reception from the audience on having a live event that was not as interactive as a normal podcasting live event would be. What was the feedback you got?
Oh man, I put them on game. Gathoni, I put them on game. They never imagined that such a thing was enjoyable, let alone possible, And I think personally, the first thing was the fans of the show. Those who listen to the show on a normal day, they got that experience, so they already knew what to expect. They're just happy to be there and participate. But the average person who just signed up for the event, maybe because they were curious or in search of new experiences, they were pleasantly surprised. They loved the theme and the bravery with which I delivered stuff. And the fact that they were compelled to listen. Again, I really wanted them to listen. And so imagine getting people in a room who are not used to being made to listen. They can tune out when they want. They can listen to respond. They can bring out their phone and, but here you are, it's right in your ears. Nothing else is happening. You can't hear the environment. It's just you and me. And that was new for them. I think most importantly was they were surprised by how nice it came out on the headsets. They were also surprised by the range of the headsets, because one of the things is, let's say you want to go to the bathroom or you need to like make a movement, you could carry that with you and still be doing your thing. So that really added that little twist to the experience. And now the best part was after the show, because when the content came out and the feedback came out, there was real FOMO. There's like this real clamor for more of those kinds of events. So I made sure to capitalize on that. And the best thing with my podcast is that every episode is a listening event waiting to happen. I just have to decide what I want to touch on or focus on. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, because it looks frozen for a second, and I thought I'm talking to myself right now. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, and the best part is that after everything was said and done, there was a real uptick in downloads and those important things that let you know your audience is growing and that you're getting good engagement.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Chulu, I'm going to come to you next. I feel like I've used the word inspiration a lot, but I feel like that's what all of you are bringing out. So you did a multi-city tour last year with your podcast, right? What was the thought behind it? Why did you decide to do a tour? Why different cities? How did that come about?
Okay, I think it's sort of like Wanjiru. Ideas just come to me. And I'm somebody who I will jump on it straight away. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If it works out, then hey, we had a good time. So I woke up and the idea was there, hey, do a podcast tour. So I went to the community and I said, I've got an idea. I want to do a podcast tour. And I asked, will you come? And the answer was yes.
Key.
So I said, okay, fine. And really how it came together was the community are the ones that helped to bring everything together. They're the ones that helped me find the venues. They connected me to the guests. They connected me with so many of the little details in the specific towns, which I wouldn't have been able to do as easily if I was just trying to do it by myself. And I think I had suggested it, let's say I suggested it today. In, I think, 2 weeks, everything was set for the 3 towns. We had our venues, we had 12 guests. I also did an online version. So there's 3 cities in Zambia, and then I did an online version. But I think something that was actually really helpful about the podcast tour is, at the time when I was looking at the statistics for the podcast, the people that were listening most to the podcasts were not Zambians. So, we had Kenyans, we had people in the States, South Africa, and I was just like, okay, let's go out there and tell people about podcasting, because podcasting is very, very new in Zambia, so you're kind of educating people. When you meet someone, you have to now start downloading a whole app for them and stuff. So it's a bit hectic that way. But I also think it was great to be able to just introduce the brand and for people to interact. I'm also very big on interaction. So that was something that we put front and forward in our podcast tour. One thing we did not do was we did not record. So it was a closed session podcast tour. And the reason why is we wanted to give people the space to really interact, because people get self-conscious. When you're talking about sensitive conversations, they're like, oh, there's a camera over there, or I'm going to be seen, they're going to post me, they're going to do this, So we literally had, we took photos in the first, let's say, 1 hour, which was basically networking and stuff like that. So all the pictures you see on the podcast tour are just the first section. And then the second, part of it, that's where we're having these deep conversations. People are feeling free to ask their questions and interact. And yeah, it was a beautiful experience. Every city was so different. They had different vibes. We sold out the tickets long before we actually went out. And I think it was a learning curve along the way. Every time we'd be like, oh, okay, we didn't think about this and this that we can learn. And I can say afterwards, after the podcast tour, our largest listener base now is Zambia. So yeah, it was successful in that part.
Amazing. That is really interesting. And now my question becomes, would you recommend it for a podcaster who is starting? Would you say go on tour? What were your thoughts based on what it is you've learned from the experience?
Well, I'll tell you, like I said at the beginning, what made it much easier for me was we have a community around Africana women. So it's not like, you're just going you're not too sure what you're going to find where you're going, right? So we have a community, and then that little community in that, or those few people, they're like inviting their friends and telling more people. We're doing social media advertising, and it's getting that much more I guess visibility. So it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one to say, if you're just starting out. For me, I would never say to anyone, don't try anything, right? I think, if you feel that this is something that you would want to do, then go ahead and try it. Try and look for ways that you would be able to, okay, first of all, be clear about your goals. What are you trying to achieve, right? And then you want to be as cost effective as possible. Look for people who you can partner with, be it sponsors, be it the venues or whoever else you're going to work with. And I think in those collaborations, that's where you will get the most success.
Amazing. I'll come back to you about community because I know you have Z-Pod Hub as well, but I'll go to Wanjiru and Ben. You have done a tour as well in multiple cities, but what is interesting about yours is you've done it specifically in universities. So I want to know, how did this come about? How did you end up in universities? How, just how? What's happening? What was the inspiration behind it? And how did you and Joyride get there?
I think it also just kind of happened. We had done because our structure of the podcast is we do it season wise. So in between seasons, we were like, what can we do to keep the community engaged? We had just come from doing our live experience. And so our university actually reached out and they were like, can you bring the live experience that we saw you guys doing into our campus? And so we decided, sounds like a good idea. But why don't we take it a notch higher? Why don't we go do multiple stops in different university space? Because we all started out in the campuses and we didn't have that kind of hand-holding. Nobody really taught us about content. We had to learn about it on the job. So we said, why don't we do multiple stops to different campuses, talk about careers in the digital space, and then we can culminate it with this huge live experience in the campus that we were invited to. And so that's kind of how the idea came about. And so we did the first edition of the tour. It was pretty successful, and then that's how we kept the ball rolling. We started out in 2022, I think in June. Until now, we've impacted about 5,500 students across the country, which is really amazing. Yeah.
I like how subtle you're being with the numbers, being like, it's beyond amazing. Actually, because you have the covet Gen Z, I feel like everyone's trying to figure out that age group, and I feel like you just have it on a platter. So I'm interested from your perspective, based on being in campuses, how do you feel the reception the younger generation, as I age myself, have towards podcasts? What do you think what's your on podcasting?
Oh, they love it. They really, really love it. Oh man. So I remember one time we went to this university. It's in Eldoret. Eldoret is not, it's not like the capital city, but it's a big city. But now we just didn't go to the city. It was a bit interior. And I was sure this tour was gonna get like maybe 20 people, 15 people. I was just giving myself psych that, what, a community is a community, But they came in large numbers.
Hundreds.
We had around 400, 500 people who showed up, and they stayed throughout the whole session just listening to what you were saying about the digital space. I feel like the generation, do I call it the generation or the younger people, they really love this space. You see, for us, I feel like we stumbled upon it. The way I've been listening to stories here and how we all started our journeys. It's interesting that something that's happening in Kenya, you think it's only happening to you. It's also happening to somebody in Zambia. It's also happening to somebody in Nigeria. And I'm sure if you had gotten somebody from the south or the north, you would have found it's like there's just this urge at an individual level to start something where you can speak to people that's not traditional media. And now we have been the ones to try and find what is this idea and where is the road. And now that's how we've all stumbled upon podcasting. Now the generation that's coming after, they believe we have a lot of know-how in this stuff. They believe that we really know what we are doing. I hope there are no corporates watching, but we do actually know what we're doing. But it's like we are all trying to find and create our path. So to us, it was very touching that we can now just go and share this with the younger people. And they were so impressed. They feel more humble. For us, we were shocked that they would actually come, but to them, they really appreciate the fact that we would think about them. And now we just don't focus on the capital city. We're now focusing across the country. And that we've seen that now that is even a big impact, because even when you look at a country like Kenya, the biggest mode of communication has always been radio. You know, a lot of people love radio. You know, even my grandmother has a radio. Everybody has a radio. People love listening to conversations. So the impact and the hunger in the Gen Zs, it's really big. And I think there's an untapped potential right there.
Yeah, and also to add to build on what Ben is saying, I think one of the key things that Joyride is passionate about is really just passing on the baton. We realize Ben and I won't always be the cool ones forever, and so if we can play a hand,
I think you should speak for yourself. It's coolness. I'm a dictator. I'm saying
you'll always be cool.
Yeah.
No, but we realize we won't always be the cool thing always, and there's someone younger coming up. So if you can play a part, share some information that will help the next generation, then I think that's very pivotal to the kind of work that we do.
Amazing. I like it. I had a conversation with a podcaster last year. Her name is Sally, and she said she's anti-gatekeeping. So I feel like you're on the same train where it's just, if you need the information, come, we'll share it. Let's just spread it. And I feel like each of you is in that space. Rodney, I know we're going to lose you soon. So I'm going to come to you and ask you, what would be your advice for anyone who's trying to start something unconventional and has never been done in podcasting, especially with the thought that money, I feel like all podcasters are wondering about money, and you said you got a sponsor. So what's your advice to someone who's trying something unconventional? And yeah, what would you tell that person who wants to try something unconventional in podcasting?
When I saw that question, I was like, that's a good question, because I mean, this isn't just about me. I know, like you guys said, it's not just about us per se. It's about providing a blueprint for the generation that's coming after us, right? And that next generation of content creators, poets, podcasters, social commentators, and artists, you know, they need to see people being brave and being themselves, whether it's conventional or unconventional. You know, people need to feel brave about putting their voices and their points of view out there, especially if they mean well. Because it's really the people who mean well who are always the scared to talk. You know, it's the ones who want to start fires that be talking and be brave for no reason. So it's good that those of us who have great platforms, who are trying to, you know, do the right thing, or what we think is the right thing, or do something that helps someone else do the right thing. This is just to show others, because I think that artists need to be advocates, and audiences need to be activists, right? And what that means is that we have to stand for something, so that our communities, like you have built and we have built, can get energized to do the work, to take action in their little communities, right? And I've seen, I'm an artist at heart, and I've seen how art can be used to make a heart-wrenching case for change. I've seen it, like, beyond politics and other things. Culture is the strongest instrument for change, and it's slept on. Everyone is focused on politics and other things, but culture and art, if it's done well, if it's done right, can change the game subliminally, at least. And if the culture changes, then it's very likely that the politics changes. So I think what we're doing and what I'm doing is a long game here, where it's like, yo, if you have something that you feel can add to the table, you can bring to the table, that can move the conversation forward and help people be better, both as individuals and in the local communities, go for it. We're here to show you the way, and unconventional is exactly what we need, because we've seen, people feel like they've seen it all. You know, when you talk about, for example, with this podcast thing, this listening thing that I did in Abuja, people are very, very almost uptight in a sense. They always feel like they've seen it all. You know, oh, they've done this, done that, parties, all kinds of things. And so this was my way of saying, no, you haven't. No, you have not. Try me. You know, and so I think the more we do that, the more we keep people on their toes, and who knows what can happen.
Amazing. You've all touched on community as well. Chulu, I know you've specifically done Z Pod Hub. You built a community specifically for podcasters in Zambia. Why did you feel that was important to do? for your community, especially as you say that podcasting is very new in the country?
Well, it's kind of funny. I was having a conversation with another podcast, The Village, and we kind of just said, oh, it'd be great to have a podcast community for Zambians. At the time, not really thinking that there were many podcasts. We're thinking like, okay, maybe there'll be like what, I don't know, 7, 10 that would join so I put out a call out, I think on Twitter. And I think within a week, we had a WhatsApp group with like 70 podcasters, and we're just like, but where are you people? Like, how come it's not easy to find you, And I think what I realized is so many of us are working in isolation, and by us coming together, we're able to share resources, we're able to teach each other different skills. We are able to celebrate together, and it's things like the APVA Awards and all of that. And it just makes it, and then I think even just being able to see somebody else do something. So if somebody sees, oh, she's done a podcast tour, oh, they have, they're selling merchandise or whatever it is, just seeing that possibility starts, putting ideas in your mind about the possibilities for your own podcast. And it's inspirational. So it's been an interesting journey. It's been an interesting way of networking as well. And yeah, I think it's something that I'm quite enjoying.
Amazing. And in talking about community, Ben and Wanjiru, I feel like you've taken it in a different way where you have decided to build a studio for podcasters. So walk me through the thought process. Was it just we need a space for ourselves? How has that helped in developing your network as well? And how has it impacted your podcasting journey?
Actually, the reason why we started the studio was because we were spending so much money also hiring spaces and trying to look for venues where we can shoot our podcast. So you have to keep talking to restaurants, or sometimes you have to hire houses, especially from different Airbnb platforms. And we started feeling like this money was too much, that maybe we can start our own studio, and also now in return also hire it out to other creators, because now we're also noticing a trend where now organizations are also starting to create their own podcast. So we provide that as well to other organizations. So for me, it felt more of it's like a need that's also needed in this at this time, because now a lot of people are also starting the podcast. People are also looking up to us, because we were some of the first people to adopt this podcasting in this country. So now it gets to a point where now we open it up to other podcasters, and I felt like there was a need and there was a gap, and we were feeling it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Rodney, I know you have to leave us, so I will come to you and ask you where we can find you. And then let us know one thing you would want to tell yourself in the past, like before you started your journey of testing things in podcasting. What is the one thing you tell Rodney of the past? So tell us where we can find you, and one thing you tell Rodney of the past.
First of all, I'm so inspired by you guys. I would love to get your handles. I'd like to keep in touch. So, Gathoni, if you don't mind, please, you can email me those. For those who'll be watching, I'm on Instagram at the Young God Pod. I'm on Twitter at I am the Young God, and the podcast is available wherever podcasts can be heard, even YouTube Music. I don't know if you guys are exploring that avenue, but we'll see how that goes. So that's where I am. What would I tell my past self? I would tell him you're onto something. That everything adds up, everything really adds up. Everything that you've been through, everything that you've seen, everything that has a way of adding up when you really, 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 really need it. And you'll be surprised how at every stage you have to like lean back on your past knowledge or wisdom. Like so things from the past become wisdom in the present if you're on the path that you're supposed to be on. So yeah.
Cool. So I will ask you each one last question. I promise you I'm going to keep the time as we had agreed on it before. I wanted to find out, what is the reception you have received, Chulu, from other podcasters in the space based on what it is you're doing? And has there been anyone reaching out to you, whether in the network to creating networks, if it's on creating community, because I know that's a big thing that we're all trying to figure out, or if it's like doing the tour? Have people reached out to you about what it is you're doing?
I don't like to do anything alone. When I started podcasting, I actually found similar podcasts. So podcasts that are based around women's stories, women's narratives. And I reached out to those podcasters and I said, hey, do you want to have like a meeting? And then they were like, okay, they showed up. I didn't think they would show up. So I actually had a podcast community, you know, for the first year or two before ZPod Hub even started, right? So in this community, you know, I had a major hiccup because I didn't start off doing production for my own podcast. I had somebody else doing it, and then they decided that they would not work with me anymore. So then I was like, oh my God, am I like, are we ending here? This is the end. And, you know, I went into the community. I said, hey guys, what am I going to do? And they said, jump on this Zoom thing. We're going to teach you. And they started teaching me just like that, you know. So that's why the podcast is still here, because of community. So we are, you know, we still continue to help each other. We are always, you know, referring each other guests. You can go in and ask like, hey, I'm looking for this and this type of guest. You have somebody, we tell each other what we're doing. We cross promote. Yeah, so for me, community has been very central in my podcasting journey. After doing the podcast tour, I think just with ZPod Up and also doing the podcast tour, you know, often people will ask me different questions around podcasting and things like that. So I'm very open to helping people and, you know, working with people, collaborating as well. So yeah, I think it's just one of those things that I do all the time naturally. So people are used to reaching out to me.
Amazing. The introvert in me had a panic attack when you said that you reached out to people directly just on your own. And I was like, no, thank you. But that's amazing. We all need someone like you in the space. Wanjiru and Ben, to you, I want to ask because I think you have a very unique perspective into what the younger generation likes and what they need, because you have direct contact with them. What would you advise for a podcaster who's trying to reach out to like Gen Z? What is it that you feel like they should go towards? What do you think the path should be in that direction, if that's the target audience they have?
To be very honest about it, the main ingredient is baggy jeans. Like they are really back, and that's
That's
it.
what they're feeling.
That's what they're feeling. Like skinny
We
jeans
always
are
make
done.
sure we have mom jeans.
Skinny jeans are done. No, but on the
And
on the
part the
real,
hair in the middle, huh? Make sure your hair is parted in the middle. We know. Cool.
Nothing fitting.
yeah. But I think for what I'm picking from them is they want a lot of authenticity and just being true to who you are. You would be shocked at how many people would relate to a similar story of something that you're going through at a particular time. So they can easily spot out when somebody's trying to be too cosmetic and somebody's trying to be too a bit fake, or even the fake deep, you know. Like just be who you are. And I feel like that for us is what has worked. We didn't think it's a big selling point. Actually, we didn't think it's a thing. We thought that this is how it's supposed to be, but that for us is one of the things that has really set us apart. So I feel like that audience really connects with being authentic and being natural. Hence why people would move away from the scripted mainstream media to listening to a podcast, because they want to hear a story about how you were heartbroken by this guy when you thought you would change his life, you know. And then somebody's like,
I relate.
you would be shocked at how many people have tried to do the same thing. When you felt so depressed because maybe you had not figured out your life after university, you'd be shocked at how many people are still going through the same thing. So I feel like authenticity is really key in telling the African story.
Yeah. Just to build on what Ben was saying, we found, because even like when we do the tours, what we speak about is largely our careers and how we ended up where we are. And you'd find the audience, the Gen Zs, they want to learn about money. Like they don't want to know, just like blanket figures.
Yep.
We have to get honest with how much we made, how long it took to make what we made. What is the potential? Sometimes I know, like in different campuses, we've talked about the highest figures we've had people getting paid, and it's not even us. We've talked about how long it's taken for us to make money in the industry because our journeys have been different. So that just really being honest and being authentic and saying, do as you wish with this information. We're being honest, we're being true, and we hope it inspires you. So I think that has helped us create that connection.
Amazing. Thank you guys for making the time. Before you go, I would like you to tell me where we can find you. And as I asked Rodney, I want you guys to give advice to your previous past podcasting self. So where can we find you? Personal if you want, if not, that's fine also. But where can we find you? And then advice for your past podcasting self.
Where you can find us, because we are on unmute, so we'll just go for it. Wanjiru_Njiru on Instagram.
Ben Cyco on Instagram.
And then our podcast is the Joyride Podcast on all platforms, including TikTok, also on YouTube and all audio platforms. One advice to your past self, 2021, when you were starting the podcast. 2022, yeah.
Myself?
Yeah.
I'd say is that you're on to the future. Like this is gold that you're about to strike.
Yeah.
Strike it as hard as you can. Stop
Yeah.
holding back. Stop fearing. Just go for it. This is the future.
Yeah. Two things for me. Don't be afraid to make that quote. I remember when our commercial director was making a certain quote, and I was like, yeah, nobody's ever gonna pay us that much. And they did pay us that much. And I was like, don't be afraid to make that quote. And number two, just keep going. You'll meet some bumps on the road, but it will be a beautiful, joyous ride.
I see what you did there, poetry.
Yeah.
We see you. Yes, Joyride. And make that money. Wanjiru says you can make that money.
Yeah.
Right, that Chulu, I'm coming to you now. Tell me where we can find you and what you tell your past podcast self.
All right. So my personal handle on Instagram is Chulu_by_design. And then Africana Woman is basically on all platforms, Africana Woman. We've got our website, Africana Woman. So LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, yeah, the whole deal. So just look for Africana Woman and you'll find us. And then what did I tell my past self? No, I think I would just say, you know what, you're gonna have such a fun time. Like you don't even understand how much fun you will have. So enjoy it. Enjoy the lessons. Enjoy, meeting all the people and all the experiences. Getting to see the country. Yeah, you're gonna have an amazing time. So just keep going.
Amazing. Thank you for making the time. My name is Gathoni. I'm the community manager at Afripods. You can find me at Afripods. You can find me at OK Kiasi. That's the podcast I have with my sisters. And you can find me at Podcasting in Africa on social media. Thank you so much for making the time. Happy Africa Podcast Day. You guys are amazing. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Gathoni.
Thank you.